Marian Hale turned the key in her front door and froze. The house she had spent 20 years building with sweat and sacrifice was alive with noise. Laughter that wasn't hers. Music rattling the windows. The smell of burnt food drifting through the air. On her porch stood her daughter-in-law, Kelsey, wearing Marian's embroidered apron as if it were a badge of ownership. Unknown children kicked a ball into her flower pots. Beer cans rolled across the lawn she had tended with her own hands. Marian's voice wavered but stayed firm. "This is my home, Kelsey." Her words were met with a cold smirk. Kelsey crossed her arms. Trevor said, "We can use it as long as we want. You live in the city. We need space." Behind them, strangers peeked out. Kelsey's mother, sister, cousins. None offered a welcome. Instead, they looked at Marian as if she were the intruder. At 70, Marian stood small in her travel clothes, yet unbroken. Every eye pressed judgment onto her skin. Still, she refused to beg. She refused to fight on their terms. She drew a deep breath, lifted her chin and said, "Only I understand." But inside, a fire burned. If they thought she would leave quietly, they had awakened the wrong woman. Before that humiliating morning, Marian Hale's beach cottage had been her sanctuary. 20 years earlier, she was a 50-year-old widow with nothing but a sewing machine, a second-hand car, and a stubborn will. While others doubted her, Marian stacked fabric orders high, stitching until her fingers throbbed, saving each check in a worn envelope hidden behind flower jars in her kitchen. Every curtain hemmed, every wedding dress altered, brought her closer to her dream. This cottage on the edge of Cape May, New Jersey. She remembered the first day on the vacant lot, salty wind in her hair, clutching her savings book. People said it was foolish for a seamstress to want a beach house. But Marian saw possibility. Weekends became workdays, painting walls herself, planting geraniums in clay pots, sanding the porch railing until it gleamed. Trevor, her only son, sometimes joined, helping with roof shingles and laughing as they ate sandwiches on the half-finished deck. For Marian, this cottage wasn't luxury. It was survival. Every long night she had battled loneliness after her husband's passing. Every penny saved instead of spent. Proved that even a woman the world dismissed could build something lasting with her own hands. The following day, the cottage looked less like a home and more like a summer carnival gone wrong. 3 unfamiliar cars blocked the driveway. Folding chairs leaned crooked against the porch. Empty soda cans rattled in the breeze. Music thumped loud enough to shake the windows. Her once trim lawn bore muddy footprints and crushed blossoms. Geraniums she had tended like children were now soccer goals for teenagers she had never met. Towels dripped over wicker chairs on the deck, staining cushions she had carefully chosen last year. Inside, the air was thick with burnt grease and competing perfumes. Strangers wandered her kitchen, moving pots and pans as if they belonged to them. Every corner echoed with voices. Brianna, Kelsey's sister, barked at her teens. Doy, Kelsey's mother, laughed too loud, her words dripping with disdain. When Doy saw Marian, she tilted her head mockingly. "So this is the famous mother-in-law. I pictured someone more impressive." Chuckles followed. Marian swallowed the sting, letting silence speak louder than their ridicule. She stood in the doorway surveying the chaos. This wasn't just an unexpected visit, it was an invasion. Every detail, the soccer ball scuffing her painted deck, the greasy skillet abandoned on her stove, the careless laughter in the space she had built with sacrifice, told her one thing: they weren't leaving anytime soon. They had already decided her cottage was theirs. Marian steadied herself on the doorway, the hum of the ocean just beyond the walls reminding her to keep calm. Kelsey blocked her path, arms crossed, chin raised like she owned the air. Trevor said, "We can use this place as long as we want," she declared with certainty. "You hardly come here. It's wasted on you." Marian's pulse pounded, but her reply was measured. "This house is not a spare key to be passed around. It is my home." Her words floated into silence, souring quickly. Brianna smirked from the sofa. Doy muttered something about selfish old women. Humiliation pressed on Marian's chest. Yet she refused to crumble. She looked at the mess, the muddy footprints on the rug, the plates stacked high with food she hadn't cooked, strangers lounging as though she were the visitor. Every piece of it cut deep. But deeper still was the realization that her son had allowed this. Kelsey narrowed her eyes. You can make this easy or hard, Marian. We have a full house. There's no room for you. Marian inhaled, lifted her chin and stepped back. Quiet but unwavering, she said, I see the choice you've made, and I promise you this will not end the way you expect. That night, Marian lay awake in a dim roadside motel. Thin walls carried the sounds of strangers coming and going. Bitter coffee sat untouched on the nightstand. She closed her eyes, but Kelsey's smirk reappeared. The laughter of people feasting in her kitchen echoed louder than the traffic outside. Her home, her sanctuary, had become a stage for their mockery. Marian pressed a hand to her chest and felt the steady rhythm of her heart. Not anger, not fear, something sharper. Resolve. She opened her notebook, usually reserved for grocery lists and sewing measurements, and began to write. Every detail spilled onto the page. Broken flower pots, towels on the chairs, the way Brianna's teens had shouted at her to leave. She wrote down each word Kelsey had thrown at her, as if recording evidence for an invisible jury. Then she paused and gazed out the window. Moonlight spilled over the distant ocean, reminding her why she had fought so hard to own that stretch of coastline. Marian whispered, If they think I'm powerless, they've forgotten who built that house brick by brick. By dawn, her decision was certain. She would not run. She would not yield. She would fight. Early the next morning, Marian returned to the cottage under the excuse of collecting medicine she had left behind. Brianna opened the door curtly, eyes heavy with annoyance. She's asleep, she muttered about Kelsey, waving Marian through as if granting a favor. The smell hit her first: grease, cigarette smoke, and too much perfume mingled together. Her chest tightened. This was no longer her sanctuary. She climbed the stairs quietly, stepping into her bedroom. Closet doors were flung open. Dresses and blouses were stuffed into plastic bags. Shoes piled like junk ready for donation. 2 children she didn't recognize sprawled across her bed. The quilt she had stitched by hand tangled beneath them. On the floor, her favorite pillows bore stains that made her stomach twist. But the worst discovery waited behind the closet wall, her hidden nook where she kept her most important papers. The small space had been ransacked. Her jewelry box gaped open, pearl earrings and a gold watch missing. The deed to her cottage lay wrinkled on the floor. Then she saw them. Documents she had never written, thick with legal jargon. A petition to transfer the property into Trevor's name. Justification read, owner incapable due to advanced age. At the bottom, a note in Kelsey's handwriting. Once signed, we can sell for $300,000. Marian's breath caught. They weren't just occupying her home. They were plotting to erase her entirely. She gathered every paper, every scrap of proof. The war had just begun. Marian drove straight to Seaside Federal Bank, her mind sharper than it had felt in years. She carried a folder stuffed with the evidence she had found. Alyssa Grant, branch manager and longtime acquaintance, greeted her with a professional smile. But when Marian set the folder on the desk, the smile faded. Alyssa, I need to know exactly how much I have, Marian said firmly. And I need protection. They reviewed every account together. Checking, savings, certificates of deposit, decades of careful saving. A few hundred at a time had grown into something substantial. Enough to cover her needs. Enough to fight. Marian exhaled. I want it in writing, she said. A statement confirming I'm of sound mind and fully managing my finances. Alyssa nodded. I'll have it ready this afternoon. And Marian, this is serious. You should see a strong lawyer. Marian's lips tightened into a determined smile. Do you have a name? Alyssa slid a card across the desk. Samuel Ortiz, experienced in family property disputes. Marian tucked it into her folder alongside the evidence. The fear from yesterday was replaced by something stronger. She wasn't a helpless old woman. She had resources, allies, and the will to defend what was hers. That afternoon, Marian stepped into Samuel Ortiz's office. Silver-haired, calm and precise, he motioned for her to sit. The smell of old books and coffee filled the room, a place where details mattered. Start from the beginning. Do not leave anything out, he instructed. Marian told him everything. Kelsey's smirk, Brianna's laughter, the children on her bed, the documents in her hidden closet. She laid the forged medical report on the desk. Ortiz studied it, eyes narrowing. This signature belongs to a doctor you've never met. Marian nodded. That alone is falsification of medical records, a federal offense. Ortiz jotted notes, then said, "Here's the plan. First, we file for emergency eviction. Trespassing is clear. Second, we report the jewelry theft. Third, we notify the medical board. Finally, we request a restraining order." Marian asked the only question that mattered. "How long will it take?" Ortiz explained, "If the judge sees the evidence, eviction could be immediate. The rest will follow. Are you willing to see this through even if it destroys your relationship with Trevor?" Marian's jaw tightened. If my son chose betrayal, he destroyed that relationship himself. My job now is to defend what I built. The next morning, she spread her papers across the motel desk like a general preparing for battle. Every scrap was sorted, dated, and labeled. Photographs showed mud on her rugs, greasy dishes in the sink, shattered geranium pots on the deck. Each image was a silent witness to the truth. Screenshots from Brianna's social media revealed her lounging in Marian's hammock and serving drinks in the kitchen, time-stamped evidence of their lies. She cataloged stolen items: pearl earrings, her late husband's gold watch, silver coins, insurance papers. Proof upon proof. When done, the folder bulged but nothing felt scattered. Marian whispered, "Paper first, feeling second." For the first time since Kelsey's sneer, she felt steady, ready to face them. Not with anger but with evidence. Tuesday morning, Marian returned to the cottage with reinforcements: Samuel Ortiz in a dark suit, a county sheriff, and a public notary. Their arrival was quiet, professional, yet authority filled the air. Kelsey's coffee mug slipped from her hand, shattering. Brianna's teenagers froze mid-laugh. Doy peered out, face pale. Ortiz began, calm but firm. "We are here under court order to deliver immediate eviction for unlawful trespassing. This property belongs solely to Mrs. Marian Hale." He held up the deed and tax records. The sheriff added, "Unless you present legal proof, vacate within 2 hours." Kelsey sputtered, "My husband is her son. That makes this our family's house." The officer shook his head. "Bloodline doesn't override the law." Silence followed. Marian noticed a small boy tugging at his cousin's sleeve, confused. Kneeling beside him, she said gently, "Sweetheart, you did nothing wrong, but this house belongs to me, and your family needs to leave now." He nodded slowly, wide eyes searching hers. Marian's dignity contrasted the surrounding chaos. Brianna tried filming, but the notary stopped her. "Official proceeding. Put the device away." The humiliation spread, bags dragged, shouting, yet Marian stood still, hands folded, watching. Her calm presence spoke louder than their noise. Trevor arrived midway, confusion on his face. "What's happening?" His gaze moved from sheriff to notary. Marian met his eyes. "Your wife told me you agreed to transfer my home. Was that true?" Trevor fidgeted, then whispered, "Yes, I knew." Kelsey intervened. "It was for the good of the family." Trevor snapped, "Stop, Kelsey. Just stop." Marian's heart twisted. Instead of rage, she said with finality, "Then you've made your choice and I will make mine." Days passed quickly. Ortiz filed eviction papers. The court acted without hesitation. The sheriff documented every stolen item, including her mother's pearls and husband's watch. Photos and screenshots were entered into the record. The forged medical report was now under investigation. News spread quietly but firmly. Neighbors noticed police cars. Legal notices arrived. Asset fraud, falsification of medical documents, trespassing, theft. The family who laughed in her kitchen now faced mounting bills, faltering excuses, and cracking confidence. Marian moved with precision, signing papers, attending hearings, answering questions calmly. The balance had shifted. What they expected as a quick victory became their undoing. One gray afternoon, the doorbell rang. Kelsey stood alone, canvas bag in hand, eyes swollen from crying. "I came to return your things," she whispered. Inside, pearls, the gold watch, silver coins. She placed them on the table one by one, like a child returning stolen toys. "It wasn't meant to be stealing," Kelsey said. "We were drowning in debt. Trevor lost money on the mortgages and I thought we could make it work. I made terrible choices." Marian listened, calm but unreadable. "These are not just objects. They are pieces of my life," she said. Kelsey nodded, unable to argue. Silence followed. Returning the jewelry didn't erase betrayal. It confirmed how deep the wound had been. With the house finally hers, Marian focused on rebuilding. Not just walls but peace. She changed every lock, added deadbolts and a new alarm, and installed small cameras along the porch and garden. For the first time in months she slept without fear. She updated her will, leaving the cottage to a coastal conservation group instead of Trevor. "If he wants independence, I will give it to him fully," she told Ortiz. No bitterness, only clarity. Marian planted fresh geraniums on the steps. Each bloom reminded her that security was not just fences and locks, but choosing peace over betrayal. Sitting on her porch one quiet evening, the ocean steady in the distance, she realized strength wasn't about shouting the loudest. It was documenting the truth, standing firm, refusing to be erased. Her story was about boundaries, respect, and courage.